It's alright.
Oh my god!
Yo guys, what is up? Max here on a Borderlands 3 video, and today we got a little bit of a different video for you guys. Instead of showcasing a build, today we're going to be talking about a build that I and tons of other players have always wanted to do on Amara, but couldn't, and what needs to get changed about Amara in order to do this build. Now, I get this is a little bit of a different video, but there are some really interesting things we're going to be talking about and some skills that work and don't work. So if you guys do enjoy the video or do learn anything new, be sure to drop a like, comment, and subscribe. And with that, let's get right into it. Alright, so the build that I've genuinely always wanted to do on Amara, but just wasn't very viable, is a status effect or damage over time build. Now, I get a lot of people asking me questions about status effect builds, damage over time builds. Originally, we had the Nimbus build, which was kind of our damage over time build, but after testing the Nimbus recently, it still works. It's still cool to do a damage over time with it, but it just isn't that strong, and you can only really utilize it with your action skill, and it just leaves me wanting more and to do more with Amara in terms of a status effect build. Now, one of the things that we're going to be talking about today is the Elementalist class mod. Now, this class mod, I think, is widely regarded as Amara's worst class mod. It is genuinely so terrible. And what I mean by that is its effect is bad. Now, the skills it boosts are interesting. It boosts Violet Tapestry, Wildfire, and there's one more that I'm blanking on, but I should have that on the screen. But whenever Amara phase grasps an enemy, her action skill element is applied to all nearby enemies. Now, this alone is kind of pointless, because when you're using phase grasp, a lot of time you're using ties that bind, and when you're using ties that bind, you have bullets chaining and damage chaining, and if you have indiscriminate, you're basically going to be dotting everything anyways, and you're going to be using your gun dot, so it's going to do more damage. But just to give you an idea of how this class mod works, it actually takes 0.002% of your gun damage and applies it to your action skill, aka not a lot of damage. So if we come over to some of the easiest enemies in the game to kill, these baby skags. Keep in mind, the anoint on my weapon is status effect damage and chance 75%, but gonna hit these enemies with a grasp. As you can see, the dot that it does is practically nothing, right? This is considered 0 damage on Mayhem 10, and this is a full class mod. I've got a good one. I've got good gear. I'm about the best spec I could be for anything of this sort, and it does no damage. So what I'm proposing is a rework of the Elementalist class mod. Now, the Elementalist class mod has a lot of things. Of course, you could just boost this damage, but what I'm thinking, and I want to hear what you guys suggest as well for this, is a class mod that just focuses on our dot damage. I think it would be really cool to just make a damage over time Amara build. Now, changing the Elementalist, possibly something that gave our dots all of the dot damage that we did, or damage over times, an increase into damage. Just a flat increase. Preferably by a lot. If I wanted to do like a dot damage build, I would want to go like full damage over time and not do much damage with my weapons, because I'd want to be killing things with my dots. So if this gave a crazy substantial damage to my damage over time effects on my weapons, but actually decreased my gun damage, I think that would be really cool and a really awesome trade-off. Now, Amara has a lot of synergy with damage over times, but they've never been that good, and they don't work that well on Mayhem 10. Most of the time, dots in this game will finish off the enemy with the little sliver of health they have left while you're reloading, but you can't really rely on them that much for damage. Now, Amara has the on-action skill and weapon status effect damage and chance are increased by 75% for a short time, which would be an amazing anoint for a build like this. Really, really cool and would work really well. But at the moment, doesn't work because dots don't really do that much damage. So this anoint isn't used. But if this build or something like this was changed and reworked, that could make this anoint amazing and open up a whole new kind of build diversity for Amara with a reworked Elementalist. Now, on top of that, people don't usually spec Violent Tapestry because it's not a great skill. People usually put just 1 point into here to get those rush stacks. Having more points into Violent Tapestry, getting so much status effect chance to instant dot things would be really, really cool. We already have Anima for status effect damage and duration. It seems like they wanted us to do dot builds or damage over time builds, but that it just didn't work out. And now we have all the remnants of what would have been a really cool dot build, but it just doesn't work. But all the pieces are there, right? Besides Anima, Tempest for all of our elemental damage, Wildfire whenever Amara applies a status effect to an enemy, it has a chance to spread to a nearby enemy, spread chance 40%. This is really, really cool because we could be doing a ton of dots and then spreading all of those dots. We have Catharsis. Whenever we trigger an elemental effect on an enemy, that enemy dies, that enemy explodes, dealing her attuned elemental damage alongside with any other element that is currently afflicted upon that enemy. This skill is a short cooldown. Now, these two skills, Catharsis and Conflux, are the two skills that I'm proposing a rework for. Catharsis does a set amount of damage when it explodes. When you have more dots on an enemy and they explode, it does more damage. However, it is a set amount of damage. At Mayhem 10, skills like Catharsis don't do anything because 739 damage, even I know it's 1 out of 3 right now, is no damage. These skills should either be scaling with Mayhem 10 or be reworked to deal the explosion of your gun that you're holding. So like they would explode with the dot damage that your weapon is holding, and then for each dot, and then that could get multiplied by like your splash, your elemental damage. Catharsis, no one really goes to this skill, and for a dot focused build with tons of dots, that would be amazing. Now, the biggest skill, or the skill that's been a problem since the launch of this game and has never really been good, is Conflux. Now, if you did not know this, I've covered it in a few videos. I've talked about it fairly recently, but Conflux, when you dot an enemy, Amara applies a status effect to an enemy, she gains a chance to randomly electrocute, ignite, or melt that enemy. This random status effect is set. It is a set value, even though it doesn't say that value. It is not influenced by anything. So if I am holding a complex root with 10,000 dot damage, right? And I'm holding a Unkempt Herald with 8,000 dot damage. If both of these weapons proc a Conflux dot on an enemy, the dot does the exact same amount of damage, and it's like 700 damage versus a weakness. So like fire versus flesh is like 700 damage, and like 300 damage against a non-weakness. So like shock against flesh would do like 300 damage, and it's really, really bad. 700 damage on a dot for a skill that's all the way down at the bottom of a tree is terrible. It does no damage. The only reason to ever spec into this is for the skill Harmageddon. Enemies take 5% more damage per unique status effect. So sorry, that kind of scared me. But whenever Amara applies a status effect to an enemy, if this changed to then reproc the dots that you were already had on the enemy, or scaled with the weapon, so whatever the weapon dot was, if that was a Conflux dot, and then you had the Elementalist giving your build or gun more dot damage, and then you had this status effect dot, and that all worked and synergized with Conflux, you could have an amazing DoT damage over time status effect Amara build, which I personally have been wanting to do for forever, and I think a large part of the community, one, because I get asked about it, and because it's kind of like there's all the pieces there for this to work, but it just doesn't. I think this could be a huge shakeup in the meta if these changes happen. I really hope they do, because I would love to play a damage over time Amara build and be able to use my weapons without having to use the Nimbus class mod. The Elementalist class mod needs to get reworked. It's at the current moment really bad and should not be used, but with a DoT focus rework to it, we could see a huge shift in Amara. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I will catch you guys in the next one. Please drop a comment on what you thought of my ideas here, and if you have anything that you would tweak to them, because as a community and as Amara players, I think this change would be amazing. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace!